Hi everyone, this is Jasmine, aka Min from Minneapolis at KSDT Radio, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Vinny from Redbox. How are you today, Vinny?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Would you like to introduce yourself and your band?
Well, I guess we're from New York. Um, we're not a movie rental box. We still get confused for Red Box and the Red Sox and Red Fox, but we're not any of those things. And yes, that is a line that I have ready to go at all times. We do like rock music that sounds a lot like stuff from the 90s, a little bit from the 2000s, and a little bit from the 70s and 60s. So I don't even know what we are other than just rock band. So, I mean, maybe you'd be better qualified to tell us what we sound like than we do.
You got it pretty spot on. I mean, you know your music best.
Okay, fair enough.
90s rock is what I would describe it as.
Works for me.
All right, thank you for being here, Vinny. I have to
Sure.
say that Birdbox has become like a bit of a household name on our show. We play a lot. Like I've played like full albums on the show before, so it's nice to have
So
you on.
you're welcome, and that'll cost you, I guess about I don't know, $150 per album. So if you could just make a checkout, that would be
Okay.
great.
Well, I've done Realign, so but it's strange that you're taking money from a starving college student.
Yeah,
You're gonna get canceled.
that'll go over real well in my career. But no, thank you for playing the music on your show. It's any help. It's so hard to get your stuff noticed, and we're already very fortunate, and we have um, definitely people that are interested in listen. But even with that, it's still tough to get any real exposure when the music scene has changed so much and how things are promoted. So it's thank you. It's really helpful.
Yeah, of course. All right, so you guys just released a new single last week. It's called AV. It's super synth heavy compared to some of your other releases, and it's like most in tune with your last album, Afterthoughts, than anything else in your discography. And you're planning on releasing an album later this year. Is this single representative of what's to expect on the upcoming album?
So I think it's kind of hard to describe the sound of the next album because it runs through so many styles. When I think of a band like King Gizzard, I think of each album having its own sound, and they kind of lean very heavily into that sound per album. And I think that's a really good thing. And I know we've kind of tried to do that a little bit, but I do think this next album is exploring a lot of different sounds, stuff that we've done before, stuff that we haven't really tried much of. And I think there's going to be something for everyone. Um, I hope so, at least. But I
Now,
also,
oh, sorry.
no, no, it's okay. I also do wonder if having that much variety is a positive or a negative. So I guess we'll find out.
I do think that a lot of the appeal to your band is that your albums are very diverse. Like you guys don't settle on a specific sound.
Well, we do like a lot of other music, outside of the 90s rock. I think everyone in the band kind of has our common spots that we really enjoy. And for most of us, that's Pink Floyd and Radiohead and all that stuff. But then there's, you know, a lot of indie rock, jazz to a degree, classical. There's a lot of stuff that is more electronic heavy, like MGMT. And between all of those influences, and especially me, if I'm writing most of the stuff, and I tend to enjoy trying different things. I like to play music that sounds like 90s rock on the guitar and sing it because it's just fun on stage. But writing is very song dependent. Like if I come up with something and I'm like, oh, this could use a synthesizer, and then eventually it just turns into AV. That's kind of how I go about my process is let the song dictate what it is. And sometimes we stockpile and put stuff that sounds good together on the same album. And I know I'm kind of a little bit long-winded here, but I'll just say that we definitely have for this album a lot of songs, but we recorded maybe an extra 10 or 12 that aren't making this album. So,
Interesting.
yeah, choosing which ones fit together and fit the theme is kind of interesting, especially considering this album has so much variety. So, it's just kind of a gut feeling, and it's also what stuff do I feel is the level of quality that I think would really shine on an album like this. Not to say the other stuff isn't good. I think it's really good, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure it fits on this album.
Yeah, yeah, and you guys did say that you're gonna be doing B-sides, so
We're gonna figure out
that's
something because for 5 years we've stockpiled B sides, and some of them are really good. And it's like you show a friend and they're like, "Oh wow, this is amazing," and then you show someone else and they're like, "Yeah, it's okay." So that's what music is anyway. But you listen to a song that you've created for months, a year, 2 years, you don't know if it's good anymore sometimes. So you have to kind of revisit or use your initial feeling of this is how I felt about this song when I wrote it, and then try to figure out where it belongs from there. So yes, B sides for sure, but we might also put them on another album. It's possible.
that's what you guys did for Visions and Afterthoughts. Like, some of the songs didn't fit the vibe of Visions, so you moved it to Afterthoughts,
That's
is
right.
what I recall.
Yeah.
I was also going to ask, was there anything on Visions and Afterthoughts that you experimented with, that's being carried over to the new album, or like anything really that you've experimented with in the past that is making a comeback?
Yeah, there's stuff that we did for Visions and Afterthoughts that will probably end up in the future showing up somewhere. And I think there might even be one or two that are on this next album that we didn't feel were right for the previous one. So I'd have to get back to you on that. And obviously, I don't want to, start saying songs titles yet. But I think there's going to be some stuff that could have fit nicely on our last album. And I do think the new one feels almost like an extension of the previous album in some respects. But I think there's going to be songs that are kind of surprising as well. So I'm excited for people to hear them.
I'm excited to hear that. So you, Vinny, you're the main vocalist of Red Fox, but in the past you've had some songs that have had additional backing vocals. The most recent example of this is Clone Me, which features Joe Pecora, who is your band's producer, but he also provides bass and guitar. And he was the past vocalist of the band Happy Anarchy. Are we going to see more features from him or other additional vocalists on future tracks?
I think Joe is a great vocalist. He has a higher register than me, which is really helpful for backing vocals. And we have a couple things that might feature Joe that there's a minimal feature on the next album, but I think live we're definitely doing more parts with multi-vocal kind of setup. So, for example, Reno, Joe sings on that now. Um, there's a couple songs where he does backing vocal that are not on the album, and we might even have Joe do some lead here and there in the future. We're figuring stuff out like that. But also,
Cool.
yeah, I mean, he's a fantastic guitarist and vocalist, and when you're a frontman for that many years, you paid your dues. It's like for me, I just have to think about how lucky I am to have a guy like that working on my songs, and he helps write them a bit. Definitely contributes a lot of guitar ideas. Sometimes we'll do chord changes that I wouldn't have normally thought of because Joe suggested something. He's also really good at bass lines, which now Gerald and our new guy Joe have been putting down more bass lines. So you're going to hear more of their stuff on the new album and in the future, and they're both really good as well. But Joe had a style that he brought to the previous albums that was really, I mean, he developed his bass style along with these albums. And I played bass on a couple for sure, but I mean, his stuff was always more articulate, and I would like to utilize more of Joe's talents in the future. So, and live, we're definitely going to have a lot of that stuff, and it's just really useful to have a band um, that can have more than one vocalist, and also Gerald is potentially going to sing some backing vocals too live. So it's just we're trying to build that kind of picture for our live shows where there's just a little bit more that you can listen to flesh out the songs fully.
Yeah, and that's nice that you guys are doing more live shows so you get to hear the songs in a different context.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's nice. And
Yeah.
everybody has the talent and the drive to do live stuff. So, it's just like I said, for me, I'm the least experienced with live shows of the group. So I'm really happy to have those guys kind of make me feel comfortable and to give me pointers here and there. It's really really lucky of me.
Yeah, I think I've scoured the entire internet for old Happy Anarchy live shows. I love Reset so much.
It's a great album. Yeah, I love that album.
How did you come to meet Joe? And is the music different with his production versus mixing stuff yourself, such as your old Bandcamp projects on Room to Breathe or even your other band, Davies Gray?
Yeah, so um, Davies Gray was produced by another local Staten Island studio, Moon Studios. Henry mixed that album, but we did that super quick. Those were songs we had played for. It was only 7 songs, but we had played them for God a year and a half, and then we went in, and it was like a several week process. And he was just like, "Do a live version, play it as live as possible." And then we did overdubs, and then I sang, and it's like that was the first time I had to sing on an album that wasn't just a little demo, and that was kind of a test for me. But I met Joe through Bill. Bill's a high school friend of mine, and we started playing music together. He's the keyboardist of our band currently. And when in like 2015, me and Mike were like, Mike the drummer, were like, we should play some music again. I talked to Bill and I said, Bill, where could we record a couple tracks, like it's just some songs we have? And he said, oh, definitely go to Joe. And Joe's been running his own studio, Red Room Studios, for like years, probably like 10 years, more than 10 years before I met him. And so I figured that would be great. At the time, he was in another band and maybe even several bands, just kind of always busy, always playing music. But I think in time, because of Red Vox's kind of immediate interest that people had in it, because of my internet subscribers, Joe was kind of interested in putting some effort in. We needed I needed someone to play bass, and he was happy to do it. He's very collaborative. He's someone that if a band comes in and they're missing a piece, he'll try his best to fill in, and he's always very good at that. And in time, though, like he started really feeling like a member of the band very, very quickly. And even though he was busy, he was happy to play with us and just do some guitar, do some bass, and his production just got better and better and better every year. And it's honestly, that's another one of those things where you talk about lucky, and really happy a guy like that was interested in our music. So that's how that came to be.
Shout out Joe for real.
Yeah.
In terms of your other members that you mentioned, Red Fox has gone through some lineup changes during its time,
Yeah.
with the most notable ones happening very recently within the past couple of years. How's the addition of new members affected the recording process or dynamic in the studio?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough situation when someone who's been your friend for 20 years is having a hard time keeping up in regards to live shows, and even recording. And a lot of that was due to his health. That was 90% of it. back related issues are not good for a drummer. And then that led to him wanting to focus more on his internet stuff. He's doing a game show, he streams, and that is where he's most happy. And I feel like the health was keeping him from being as good of a drummer as he wanted to be, and it was just stressing him out. So when we started doing more live shows, some hard conversations were happening. But the good news is he's on a lot of tracks still. So, for example, this album still has like 70% mic tracks, and they sound really good. I think there's a couple that people are going to be very happy with. But in order to finish this album, because again, it's a very heavy thing to leave a band, even if it's temporarily, that you've been a part of for like 10 years, and I've been playing music with Mike for longer than that, even. So it was tough. And I think he needed time to get his health back in shape if possible. I think he needs time to really be himself and work on his own projects. And he said, just finish the album however you have to. So Gerald stepped in to record. Now, Gerald played bass with us live, and he's also done percussion on previous songs. So it's, very natural. We've known Gerald for years, and he's played with us for like almost two. And so he's a different drummer than Mike, and he's a more technical drummer. He's played jazz. He's a career, lifelong musician. He is a multi instrumentalist, a great musician, very creative drummer, creative musician, and he's a great dude. So it's another kind of situation where I just have to like stop myself and be like, wow, that's really cool that a guy like this exists and he's able to contribute. He's great, and he's performed very well on the tracks we have him on. And it's bittersweet, and it kind of sucks a little bit that Mike isn't around at the moment to do his drum tracks. But we're making room for him if he wants to play in the future. It's up to him, it's up to his health, and it just depends on if the songs are right for him and his style. But luckily, Gerald is very versatile, and he's just like he'll practice the songs, he'll work on them at home, he'll come in with ideas, and then if we need to kind of work in a different direction, he can do that super quick. So it's kind of lucky. It's very very lucky, and the band feels good. So it's going good. It's going well, as sad as it can be.
From what I've seen, Gerald has been really, really good live, but I've also been keeping up with Mike, and it's really good that he's been doing well. And I hope that his health gets better. And it's good that you guys are supporting him as a band collective for if he ever wants to make a return.
Doors always open, and we're happy. He's also very successful right now, and musicians, it's hard to step away, and I think Mike will always continue to play music in some form or another, but things will have to kind of change. The physicality of playing drums, it's just too difficult for people that maybe don't have the best, build for it. And that's the thing that sucks about it. He was practicing in a neck brace, a story he tells a lot. For like 2 years he was coming in wearing a neck brace to play. So, it's tough. It was very tough, but we're there for him if he needs us, and anytime he wants to play, the doors are open, and so, hopefully he will feel better and be able to come in
Best wishes to Mike.
for sure.
So you've been playing music for a while since you were a teenager, but how did you actually start to write and record your own music? Or even how did you start getting involved with playing in bands?
I think there was a combination of some void in my life and also just ego. You kind of need a little bit of an ego to write songs and to have any kind of thought for a moment that like a song of yours would be good. Because I also struggle with self-doubt, and that ego stuff only goes so far before it really drops you on your head. So when I started writing songs, I was probably about 18, and I had started playing guitar also at 18, but that was me playing guitar for real and not just pretending to play. But I'd always had a keyboard. I always played some notes on the keyboard, and I've always been interested in music. It was like kind of discovering classic rock that made me want to write my own songs. Once you learn a couple chords on guitar, and you can put them together, it's kind of fun and it becomes addictive to just come up with ideas. But I mean, it took me years to write a good song. What I thought was good when I was 18, I look back and I'm like, that wasn't that great. But the funny thing about that is, and here's something interesting that I can give as a kind of piece of info for the next album. There's a song on the next album that is 20 years old. It was written when I was 19. Granted, we dropped the key a semitone. I wrote a whole new vocal melody, and the band turns it into something different. But fitting the theme of the album, this song actually fits really nicely, with the other songs. But it's interesting because I just showed the guys this old demo I found of the song. I was like, wow, this is pretty good. Let me show them, and they liked it enough. We jammed on it, and we came up with something that was kind of good. And so we put it on the album. And it's like you can record a song, but will it make the album? And it did. So people will hear that in whenever this album comes out. So I think writing songs is just about stumbling upon ideas and being open enough to kind of hear them, whether you're playing or in my case sometimes like in dreams or like, you know, when I'm driving even. And it becomes a thing, like a passion. Like I'll wake up from sleep, go pick up a guitar and play some melody I'm hearing in my dream, even if I'm dead tired. But it's worth it. It's definitely been worth it in the past. So I think that just comes from doing it. You got to write some crappy songs, and then eventually you write some decent ones, and then maybe if you're lucky, you write a good song or two.
Yeah, the thing with music is like you're always changing, like taste is always changing, but you're also always improving. So,
It's true.
what part of creating music or writing music is the most rewarding for you?
I think there's a couple moments that are very rewarding, which is when I first stumble on vocal melody or a top line melody for chords or a bass line, and I say to myself, hey, that's pretty good. That is very, very rewarding, especially if that gets stuck in my head for a couple of weeks. And while it's in my head, that's when I work on the rest of it, the arrangement, the lyrics. So I really like that moment. Um, I like bringing it into the studio and seeing genuine interest from Joe and then also the other guys. And the final moment that's really rewarding is hearing a fully mixed, complete version. So releasing the stuff is good too, but it's weirdly not, I've found it's not as good for me as initially discovering a song and getting excited about it. That's the part that's very addictive.
As I've heard it described, actually, Omar Rodriguez Lopez said this. He described it as once you release a song, it's not yours anymore. It belongs to the people who listen to it. So once you finish, like you actually complete a song, it's like you're completing your own project, but the part of actually releasing it is sharing it with everyone. Would you say like that's why it's not as fulfilling?
It's still fulfilling, but I think by the time you release it, you've heard it so many times.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I agree with Omar. And I think that, yeah, releasing something, you do end up giving it to the world. Even if the world is 10 people, that's still, that's still kind of now them. And that's good. I think that's why we do it. And there are definitely musicians I've heard say they create music for themselves only. And if that's true, then I think maybe that's the purest form of it, where you just create for yourself and you don't release the music. But when you have some kind of need to be noticed or to show that like I can do this, you do want to release your music. Or if you're more altruistic, you release it because you want to give it to people and say, "Hey, when I was going through a hard time, this song helped me. Maybe it can help you." And that's the part you don't usually say out loud because it feels too heavy or lofty for just writing some music on a guitar or a keyboard. But that's kind of what music has meant to me when I was going through my hardest stuff. And there's no guarantee that you're going to release something that's going to do that for people. And in many cases, and it's happened to me, you release something that you think is going to hit with people and it doesn't, or people accuse it of being kind of highfalutin or maybe um, pretentious, but you don't know if you don't try. And if you keep trying, you might find something that really resonates with people and not just you. And that's a good feeling. When you create something that you like to play, that you enjoyed creating, and then other people get that enjoyment, that's another of the best feelings when it comes to music. And again, it's very addictive.
I haven't made any original music myself, but I've done covers and I've made art to share online.
Mhm.
I find that my favorite part of doing so is hearing feedback from other people.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I think feedback is nice. In the current world of internet, that doesn't always translate to good feedback. Um, I think a lot of people's default reaction is tear down, and that happens. But if you have a nice group or you manage to release your art to the people that would be most receptive to it, that positive feedback is really, really gratifying. And it's great. It keeps you going.
Yeah, I agree with that. This is going to be a little bit more specific. So I want to talk about the song Stranded. It's one of
Hmm.
my favorite Red Box songs. And to be honest, I do think it's your best song. And I wanted to ask, how difficult was it to compose that song and what was the process like? And also, what inspired a long progressive rock song and are you considering doing something in that style again?
So it's been a couple years, so some of the details escape me in terms of like composition, but I can tell you that we didn't necessarily plan to release a 9-minute song when we first started playing it. When we finished Another Light, we were just like, okay, let's play some new songs. And I'm pretty sure I came in with that idea, which wasn't particularly complicated. If you listen to just the verse and chorus of Stranded, it's just a kind of a standard rock song verse and chorus, nothing overly complicated. But as we kept playing it, it got longer. The solos kind of got longer. And eventually it was like, wow, this is something that we could do. We can do something kind of like Pink Floyd. And obviously Echoes, if you hear Stranded, it's kind of almost an homage to Echoes in the beginning. So our song is half the length of Echoes, but it's still, when I think of Pink Floyd, I think of Shine On You Crazy Diamond. I think of Echoes. I think of Adam Hart Mother. And I think of like stuff that is basically a lot of free form jamming. But that song ended up becoming that. And I don't remember exactly how, but as the song progressed, I guess I like sci fi. And I think as I was writing the lyrics, especially the chorus, that sounded like someone kind of calling out for like, you know, why is this happening? Or, you know, if you're there, listen to me. And the story kind of formed in my head of the stranded concept, and I think it worked out. But yeah, in terms of the exact details, they're too fuzzy to remember specifics. But it did take like 4 months to record. So that was, and when I say 4 months, it's not like every day. It's like 2 days a week. Um, and not recording the entire thing, but like recording, mixing, arrangement stuff, vocals. So it was a 4 month process from start to finish. But we're not the type of band where we're in the studio for 8 hours every day. It's like 4 hours this day, 4 hours another day. Next week we do four. So yeah, it worked out nicely. I'm glad you like it. And if we ever play that live, boy, do we have a lot to learn. We got to learn
That will
all those parts.
be a lot. Would you ever consider it?
Oh yeah, it's been considered already actually, but it's
Oh,
since we're still kind of just getting started live and also with the lineup change, right now that's on the back burner.
interesting.
Yeah, it's just
Well,
it's a lot.
if you ever do another space song, if you need someone to fact check, I got you. Fact check lyrics.
I'll definitely let you know. Thank you.
I want to shift more into talking about your live shows. During your first comeback concert in several years at the Too Many Games show, you guys did half released, half unreleased songs for the set list. What sparked the decision to do that?
I think for that, a lot of those songs that we hadn't released, we were just playing anyway and trying to figure them out. And the thing is, we ended up really liking the songs. They're fun to play, and I don't think they're necessarily better than our older stuff. But when you play your old stuff, you still kind of feel like, okay, this is the stuff that we've known for a while. So anything new is more exciting. So when we were deciding, okay, we're going to do a set at TMG, what kind of songs are we going to do? It made sense to play what we were playing anyway. And I thought it would be fun for people to have, a set of half new material. Normally, that is a bad idea. And it might have been a bad idea because I think playing the stuff people knew would have probably been the smarter decision just so everyone was having like a good time. They recognized the music. But when it comes to playing those new ones, they just work really well live. And we were really hoping to kind of give a preview of what's to come. Not every one of those songs is going to be on our next album. Some we haven't recorded yet at all, and a couple we have maybe no plans to record. So we actually kind of enjoy the idea of having a live only song, and we'll see. I mean, the future may end up with us recording some of those. But yeah, I think just for the sake of having fun, we were really happy to show. And there's some weird element of like, okay, you like that one? We'll check this next one out. For me, at least, where I thought it was fun to show an audience all new songs. But we'll see. I mean, maybe it paid off, maybe it didn't. I'm not sure.
Honestly, from what I've seen, a lot of people that both went and watched the live event, they thought it was really surprising and interesting. But also, since you haven't really done a lot of live shows like prior to that or prior to like last year, I guess a lot of people didn't know what to expect.
Happy to surprise. And
Yeah,
also, um, not only that, we've learned more older songs since then. So I don't think that's ever really quite going to happen again, where we do a full like 9 new songs. But that was very fun for us to show everybody some new stuff.
the TMG show was a whole event for my friend group. We had like a couple, or not a couple, it was actually like quite a few people that met up and then went to the TMG show. And then I did not go, but I was in Canada at the time. I was meeting my best friend, and then the first thing we did was we watched the show.
Oh, that's cool.
The person I met in Canada, Izzy, she did your posters.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean it's a really tight knit community. It's smaller than I think sometimes, but that's awesome.
Your biggest show that you guys just did was MAGFest, Music and Games Festival. How did you feel that it went?
I was pretty happy with it. The sound was a lot better, and the stage was better. We got a sound check. We got rehearsal time. Um, we were feeling confident. We trust each other as a band, and I felt better vocally because I had more time to practice, and I feel like the TMG show was a real trial by fire of okay, here's 700 people. We've been a band for a long time, but we have not played in front of 700 people. So that was a nerve-wracking day for me. And MAGFest, when I walked out on stage, I had that experience already. Even if it was double people, which apparently it was something like that, the amount of people didn't matter as much as I felt comfortable on that stage because it was more professional. No diss to TMG, by the way. They did a really good job and they're still figuring stuff out. And I appreciated that show so much. But by the time we got to MAGFest, that's music and games fest. They do that for, their artists. They know how to make that work. So I felt like I was in good hands. And by then, I mean, my TMG performance was already on YouTube and they mixed my vocals so loud. And I was, you know, nervous and I got more comfortable as the day went on for sure. But when your stuff is out there and your mistakes and I'm not really a singer, I can sing, but I wouldn't consider myself a singer, if that makes any sense. I like singing, but it's not like I don't want to be a singer. I just want to be in a rock band. But when everyone's hearing your vocals in your first live show in years and they're way too loud, the next gig is always going to be better. And so my mind was just on having a good time and presenting the songs. And I feel like it went better. I felt like my vocals sounded better. In fact, MAGFest has a mix of that. They did their own mix from the ground up and they re-edited the video and that'll be online today. So later on,
Ooh.
yeah, so it'll sound pretty good. And I won't watch it. I'm not going to watch it, but however it went is how it went. And I just know that when I was up there, I felt good. Mistakes aside, we're a live rock band. We don't have any backing tracks. There's going to be mistakes. But, and of course, there's going to be mistakes if you're a band that only plays live twice a year. but, but for our like sixth or seventh show ever in front of 1,400 people or so, I was very happy with it. And it was the dream of a lifetime to do a show like that. So we want to do stuff like that again. It would be fantastic.
I did notice that like MagFest, all of you guys really, you seem more comfortable and the mixing was better. Well,
Yeah,
just
for
like
sure.
I'm a live sound person at there's a local like DIY venue on campus called the Che Cafe. I'm actually doing sound later tonight at a show. But as someone who does live sound, I did notice a huge difference between the two.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome for you. Continue doing stuff like that because that's fun. But we were very happy that we got a sound check and that we had people who had a lot of experience doing that kind of show before. So yeah, that was great. I'm really happy with it. I think we could do even better than that. I think if we had say 4 shows in a row, that last show would be pretty good. So for a band of people in in their late 30s or so, who don't play a lot of live music anymore, it worked out pretty good. Yeah, I'd like to do that again.
I really enjoy seeing you guys' live shows.
Thank you.
If you guys ever do a tour, I know that's not really your stuff. Please come to San Diego, please.
I will make no promises, but thank you for asking.
I would travel for Red Rock.
Thank you.
You're talking about the size difference between MagFest and TMG. It was like MagFest was like 2,000 people
I've
or
heard it
so.
was between 1,200 and 1,500 people. So I don't
Oh,
have an exact count, but some people said it was 2,000. I don't know. It's impossible to tell from that And even when you're like looking out into the sea of people, it still doesn't compute. So I have no idea how many people we played for.
You did a show like MAGFest, but you also you guys do a lot of smaller bar shows. Do you feel differently between playing different venues like that, and do you have any preference?
Um, at this point, I would prefer playing slightly bigger than a bar that has good sound with a sound check. That's kind of, I think, the sweet spot. A couple hundred people would be great. I would do another show for 1,500, but I think that's kind of more convention focused. So that's okay. We did local bars. We did, the same one, but and that was mostly in front of friends. And for sure there were a number of strangers that we didn't know, which was helpful. But the first time we did that was our first live show in 7 years almost. And that was nerve-wracking for me because there was also a lot of local Staten Island musicians that I didn't know knew our music, and they've been established in the scene for a long time, and suddenly they're watching our band. So that was like, oh wow, now I have to kind of show these people what I can do. Not that they would judge me; they were good people and they're friends, but that plus just not having played in so long, I don't remember much of that show. Then when we did TMG to the 700 people, it was like, holy crap, this is a lot of people. And after that, shows didn't seem so scary anymore. So going back to a bar when we did that bar again, I there was almost no nerves whatsoever. They were just kind of gone. And it was like, well, I know the songs and we'll just do the songs and have fun. So I think it's just again playing for so many people in one go kind of changes how you view live performing. And that's kind of where I'm at still.
Yeah, I feel that a lot when you said like you get nerves when you were playing for musicians that you knew and were already established. I feel that a lot when I do sound for bands like in the scene that I know of, and a lot of people show up for them. I'm like, oh my God, I can't mess up their sound. If I make them sound bad, they're gonna kill me. But then I talk to them and they're like, oh my God, you did so great, and it's like, oh, they're like really chill, so it's fine. I don't know, it's scary knowing that you're viewing something in front of musicians that you already know, that are already established. But
Yeah.
once you get into it, you get into it.
Yeah, you just kind of fall back on performing and having fun. And I think one of the things is we actually have fun playing these songs. Like they're just, we have a lot of stuff in the Red Vox catalog that would be more difficult to recreate live. And I'm happy that we also have songs that are fun to play live. So we are definitely having a good time. And you just jam, play music, and see what happens. And I think the results kind of have been pretty okay for us. But, again, we want to do more, we want to do better, and we want to add more songs from our back catalog into sets and eventually have, a lot of songs that we can rotate in and out. That would be fun.
A tip that I heard once was if you see people dancing and moving, that means you're doing good. And I did see a lot of people jumping at your shows. So probably.
Yes. And then sometimes you kind of focus on those people for a minute while you're performing and you're like, well, if they're into it, or, if you forget a lyric, you can just take a look at the person mouthing the lyrics to the previous album, and you just, oh, I remember now. Got it.
Yeah. Is it strange hearing people sing back words that you wrote?
Yeah, the first time that happened was TMG, and that was kind of weird. It was cool, very cool. But I mean, I've also been streaming on, Twitch and doing YouTube stuff for a long enough time where life doesn't seem real sometimes. Like when I go to a convention and I meet people, they remember events from my life from 10 years ago that I completely forgot about, something I may have talked about in a YouTube video. And people are very, they're into the stuff that they remember and they see in the videos. So in a way, while hearing someone sing In the Garden back to me, and multiple people sing it, was a surreal kind of crazy experience. At my current age and with stuff I've experienced before, it wasn't something that kind of blew me away and I couldn't recover for like a week. It was just like, holy crap, is this real? And then just get on and sing the song. I mean, especially if you go to a lot of concerts, and I do go to as many concerts as I can, and you see the whole audience singing along to that well-known song. That's kind of crazy. Now here's the thing: do not sing along to Wonderwall. That's the one faux pas. You cannot sing to Wonderwall, even if it's Oasis playing it. That's a bad thing, and I know that because the internet told me. So any other song you can sing along to your heart's content. But that's a piece of advice for anyone out there.
Yeah, because you have to believe everything that the internet tells you guys. This is a
It's all
very
real.
well-known lesson. I never have to consider that because I'm on the side of Blur. Sorry.
I, why not both?
Um, I've been conditioned to be against Oasis. I will say that.
Okay, so all right, I understand, but one day you're going to be in a bar and you're going to hear "Live Forever," and it's just going to be like a good moment, and you might say to yourself, "Oh no, I do I like "Live Forever"?" It may
Oh, I
happen.
like Oasis.
I know it would be a shame. I'm ashamed to admit that I'm going to see Oasis for their reunion, and that is a shameful thing to admit, especially as an American. People give you a lot of crap for liking Oasis, but I also have seen Blur and I've seen Gorillaz and I love Damon. So, I mean, it's like the Stones and Beatles. I love both. Pearl Jam, Nirvana, I love both. So it's just, for me, it's good music is good music. And by the way, the Oasis guys are some of the most cantankerous people in rock history. And they've called George Harrison a nipple. And they have said some of the most bizarre shit about everyone and each other. However, when I hear Supersonic or Live Forever, I know that it makes me feel a certain way. And I think that's good. So, yeah.
I'm aware of the Gallagher brothers. But yeah, I was just exaggerating about the Oasis thing. Just like the thing is like the only I haven't really gotten to listening to a lot of Britpop other than Blur.
That's fair. Well, their Blur is the best. They're great.
Yeah. I asked you as a performer, do you prefer bigger or smaller shows? But as a show goer, do you prefer bigger or smaller shows?
Smaller to a degree, but if a band is really good, they can make a big venue like Madison Square Garden seem small. The phrase "shrink the room" comes to mind, and I've been to shows that were like that. And weirdly, McCartney was one of them. It still feels like a big show, but it is weirdly you have your own experiences with the music, right? So the McCartney music, Beatles, I know how that music has made me feel. I know when I discovered it, and when I heard Paul play the music, it was still a personal experience. But I did see Blur on the topic of Blur about 10 years ago almost, and they were at a little kind of music hall for a band like that, and it was like 400 or 500 people, 600, and that was one of the best shows I've ever been to because I wasn't that far away, and here's this band that is proven, and it's just a small club, and the energy was incredible. It was indescribable. King Gizzard as well. I've seen them in smaller places. I've seen them in Forest Hill Stadium, and they're not really that much different in the two situations. They just feel like a fun band to watch, whether you're up close or whether you're far away. So I think smaller venues, but one other thing I'll say is I don't love to watch right up front. I don't want to be crushed. Man, maybe when I was in my 20s, but now I'm okay hanging back and I'm okay to just kind of hear the music and not see as much of the music happen. It's fine. I just don't need to be crowded or crushed. And that's very old man of me, but so be it.
Yeah, with like the music that I listen to, if you're at the front, you're gonna get your ass beat. I told you how I saw Thursday in Silverstein, and I got in the pit, or like I was like near the pit since I was near barricade, and I got kicked in the face and my glasses broke. But you know what? It
Mm,
was really worth it because
yeah.
I really did like being like super up close, but it was a lot.
Yeah, super up close because it can be fun. And I've seen a couple bands like the Pixies right up front, but also I'm just happy to be a part of an experience, even if it's further back.
Yeah, I that's why I guess I prefer smaller shows as well, but like well, cause with the like the small shows that I do, I'm usually like in the sound booth, but at the shows that I actually do go to, they're small but not that small, but it does feel really intimate, and I find that the artists that I've been to, they do a lot of crowd interaction, so that was really
That's
cool. It
good.
was like seeing your idols like up close and personal. It's like wow, they're real.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and they're just
they're also
people
just
and
guys.
they eat and they pee as well. They could be among us uh anywhere.
They are
They
among us.
they could be. They could be. And that's the thing.
Could even be playing among us.
Could be playing among us with Damon Albarn. It's true. People sometimes for me they kind of at conventions, I've had the experience now a couple times and it almost doesn't make any sense to me because it's just me and I'm like, okay, this is weird, but some people have been very very nervous, some people have cried and they tell me how much the music or even my streams, which are very silly, but they tell me how much it means to them, and I have to remind myself that this is a weird thing because in the 70s, let's say, just as an example, if you were famous, you were famous and you would have a hard time like walking around in the real world. Now you can be famous in a building with like 20,000 people in that particular building. But then for me, in my case, I could walk around Manhattan for 3 hours and maybe one person would recognize me. And that's happened before. It's always really cool, but it's not it's such a weird fragmented compartmentalized experience that you go through life and people treat you exactly the same, but then in very certain circumstances people treat me like I've written Stairway to Heaven, and that's a hard thing to wrap my head around, and I don't know if I've fully handled it or adjusted to it particularly perfectly. I know I haven't. And it's just still kind of a mind fuck. You can bleep that. But I feel
Nah, it's fine. You can curse on the radio.
okay. I'll say more curses.
Okay.
I definitely feel like I'm still working that out. And um, when I've met people in, for example, the YouTube space that I really respect and have watched myself, over the years, and they're just people. They're just like, you talk to them, they go through their own stuff. It kind of dispels the myth a little bit. But then I think about like the people that I listened to when I was younger, like someone like David Gilmour from Pink Floyd is like a legend to me. But when you see his interviews, he's just very soft spoken. He's very family oriented. Seems like a nice dad, grandfather, and that's it. But yeah, it's a
Yeah.
weird world we live in when it comes to fame these days.
It's really interesting to hear that from like an artist's perspective, because I'm not famous, but yeah, it's really weird how people, I guess, view other people. I've gotten a lot more grounded now that I've started going to shows. I only started going to concerts in 2023. But seeing people in real life, I don't know, it's very, I guess, a humbling experience because it's like, wow, they're just like people. When I met
Yeah.
Jeff Rickley from Thursday, he was very soft spoken, and I was like, oh my God, wow, this is the dude that I hear scream
Hmm.
on my CDs.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird. It is still very weird.
Do you have stories from past shows before Redbox, like performing for Davies Gray or such?
Um, for historical purposes, I understand why you would ask that, but they were just bar shows. We didn't really um we played a couple covers. I can tell you we played some of the stuff that you heard on that album. There were more Davies Gray songs that have never been recorded, by the way. We had like another 4 or 5 that were live only, and some that didn't even fully have lyrics, so I'd make them up each time. But yeah, we did like 4 or 5 shows, and that album, the Davies Gray album, only has 7 songs on it because I ran out of money. And if we could have kept going, I would have recorded at least another 3 or 4. So, it's a shame, but that's kind of how it happened then. The shows were rough. There was one show I remember that was at a pub, Bridget's Pub on Staten Island, and we played to a bar of mostly drunk people who did not care that we were on. But I remember that was when I was most comfortable on stage because I remember winning people over. Like there were people who were mostly just drinking and talking to their friends, but once in a while, people would kind of stop that and watch us. So we, aside from our friends, we had like another 15 people that were actually watching the band. So that was a cool experience, and that kind of thing. I've heard other artists say that it's like you just try to win over that one person who's on their phone or who doesn't seem like they care. But it is kind of useful. It helps you play better. We covered "The Seeker" by The Who. We covered "Another Brick in the Wall" by Pink Floyd. We covered "On a Plane" by Nirvana and "Hash Pipe" by Weezer. And I mean, we were just, we were so like, oh, classic rock is the only rock at that time. But obviously, there's so much stuff out there, and I've listened to so much more since then. But those were fun songs to play, and when we played them, people did pay attention. So we didn't want to be a cover band, but it was fun to cover a couple songs. And that's that's about all I can remember. Other than I played my Les Paul, which was very heavy, and my shoulder hurt after playing.
Yeah, I've always wanted to be in a band, but prior to this year, I was like, I only want to do covers. But once I actually started doing my internship right now, I had to help write music, and I was like, oh, this is actually pretty fun.
Yeah,
I have seen the Pink Floyd cover on YouTube, the very, very old one.
it has the worst sound quality of all time.
It sounds like you're getting microwaved, but
Yeah.
despite that, I do think it's good.
It's surprisingly good for how crusty it is. I do have other stuff that we recorded in Mike's basement that was like just one room microphone. And it sounds terrible. And I'm flat, I'm sharp, my guitar is probably out of tune for a bunch of it. But I do have a couple of Davies Gray things that we did, and I don't know if there would be any interest in the future. Not anytime soon, but maybe one day I'll dig through and find a couple. And some of those songs that we never recorded, I'll just put online and say, hey, here's a shitty old song that you might enjoy. So
For last year, you guys didn't really do, I mentioned this earlier, but you guys didn't do a lot of live shows. Was it difficult to get back into preparing for them?
yes, and it made me kind of lazy because I was like, man, now I have to do extra work. But I feel like it was worth it. And I know the guys wanted to play live. And the end result of playing live is it's better for the band. It helps grow the band. I will say that when I'm on stage, it's more about the songs than it is me. That may be tough for people to believe because when you see an artist, it does feel very self serving in a lot of cases. And it can be self serving, but also it could be about presenting the songs. When I think of a guy like Neil Young, I think he's genuinely on stage because he loves to play and because he believes in the music and he wants to play the songs so that people can enjoy those and not him necessarily. I like that. I think I want to be that. And it's been worth it. But I mean, one of the main reasons it was tough to play is some of the band members had kids and, they were busy for a little while. And then the pandemic happened when we were thinking of doing some shows. And also, I already have the career I mentioned of doing YouTube and streaming, which can be almost full time, but I've found a good balance. And we practice once or twice a week sometimes. We still manage to record. And it's been a really gradual adjustment. And now that I have those experiences and I know the songs, we have to practice less to get back to where we feel comfortable with them. So totally worthwhile. And I was being lazy, but I'm glad we did it.
From a fan perspective, seeing you guys do live shows is really cool. A pastime of mine is just watching live performances, and I get to add yours to my collection of videos that I like to watch.
Great. Well, hopefully the one today will be mixed good enough that it'll sound kind of professional. I think MAGFest did a really good job with the mixing and the video. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
I'll probably watch it before my show today.
Cool.
All right, so this is gonna be our final question. What made the band want to start doing more shows, uh, more often, and what do you enjoy most about doing live performances?
I think the decision was Joe kind of always wanted to do shows because he fronted a band for so long and it's fun. It is really fun and it feels gratifying to work hard, do a show, and then go for dinner after or something. It's just really like worthwhile. It's a worthwhile thing to do, and we ultimately decided that it would be good for the band because we've released got 6 albums and other stuff as well. Well, 5 albums technically, but and some EPs and stuff. And the thing about that is that's been good and it's gotten out there a little bit because of algorithmic stuff and people sharing it, and we're really grateful. But to go to the next level, and we're not talking about, being super famous, touring the world, but just to be able to kind of, experience what it's like when a group of people sees your music live, we thought this would be a good thing to do. And also, since MAGFest and TMG, we've had more opportunities. The music has actually, through word of mouth, gotten out there a little bit more. New people have had a chance to listen to it. Our MAGFest show went really well, and they told us that we were one of the most viewed shows online, as well as one of the most attended shows, especially for that time slot. We played early, and the interest was very high, and there was buzz around that show. So, as someone who really is proud of his songwriting, I want to get it out there, and I think doing live shows is a way to kind of do that, as well as have fun and actually see the results of your hard work and see people enjoying your music and singing those lyrics back at you. Is There's no other feeling like that. I go live a lot with my Twitch stuff, and that's a lot of fun, but it's nowhere near as cool as being on stage with 500 to 1,500 people uh, enjoying your music. So yeah, I mean, it's just great. So hopefully we get to do more.
Yeah, I can only imagine how electrifying it could be.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I hope I could do that one day.
Keep going. Keep
Thank
working.
you. I mean, if I don't like work on rockets, I'll do I'll see how I feel about doing music in my free time.
Good.
Did you want to touch upon anything else or promote anything?
No, I think that's it. So, thank you for your time. And if anyone's out there listening, I would say Thank you for your time as well. You may like a song we've made.
You made. They just, guys, everybody listen to AV by Redbox just released last week. I guess 2 weeks ago when this airs.
Yeah.
But yeah. Thank you everyone for listening. So your Redbox on Spotify, Instagram, and Twitter. Um, if anyone is listening to this and hasn't checked them out, go check them out. What are you doing? All right,
Thank you.
thank you.